In this video, we're going to talk about swapping heads in Photoshop. Hey guys, my name is Jay Yadovsky from Focus Photography and Design, helping you focus on your photography. If you're into Lightroom, Photoshop, and photography, consider subscribing to my channel and checking out some of my other videos. In this video, we're going to talk about swapping heads. When I take pictures of groups of people, there's a lot of times where somebody's not looking at the camera. Maybe they're looking up, maybe they're looking down, maybe they blinked. So what I usually do is I'll take several images while I have the group together when I'm taking the pictures, take several images, and that way I'm bound to get everybody looking at one point or another. Then what I do is I bring it back to Photoshop and I swap heads so that way I have a picture where everybody's looking at the camera. So let's jump over to Photoshop and I'm going to show you how I swap heads in a group photo. So I'm here in Photoshop and I've got two images that I want to combine to make one image where everybody's looking at the camera in this group photo. So you can see here's the first image, and if I turn that layer off, here's the second image. So this is how I would go about swapping the heads. First thing I want to do is select both layers with your images. I'm going to go to Edit. I'm going to come down to Auto Align Layers. I'm going to select that, and I usually always pick Auto, so I'm just going to let that go. Okay, so it's shifted them just a little bit, and now you can see the images pretty much line up with each other. So now I just take the image that has the most people looking at the camera, which I would say is this bottom image here, the bottom layer. So that's going to be part of my final image, this whole picture here. So what I want to do is come back to my top layer. I'm going to turn it on. I want to add a mask, and I'm going to hold the Option or Alt key as I click on the layer mask here. And that's going to fill it in black. What the black means is that I'm not going to see any of this image or this layer on top. You can see I turned it on and off. We don't see anything. Now all I have to do is look for the people in the picture that are not looking and use a brush to paint their face back in from the other image. So I'm going to select B for brush. I'm going to make my brush smaller. And I'm just using a regular round brush. And I also like to make sure that it's a fairly soft edged brush. You can adjust the hardness here. As you see, I slide it up, gets harder edge, softer edge, as that number is lower. I'm going to select the layer mask here. I'm going to zoom in. So first image here, or first head here, we have this little girl that's not looking. So I want to make sure that my colors here are black and white. I'm going to press D, which will set them to white and black. And I want to use white because that's what's going to allow this layer on top to show through. And I usually drop the flow down to start with like around 10%. You want the flow to be low, but you don't want the opacity to be low because you want everything that you're brushing in to come through full opacity. You just lower the flow and that helps you ease in the image that's underneath that you're trying to reveal. So I'm just going to start painting here. And you're going to notice sometimes not everything lines up, but you just do your best to kind of feather it all together and make it work. Now, sometimes you're going to have to go farther than just the face to blend everything in. It depends how much people move and whether they're just blinking or if they're turned, as this little girl was. So you just kind of keep blending it in until it looks like a spot that makes sense. Now that we've got most of her face and body showing and we've kind of blended it in, what I like to do now is turn off the bottom layer. And now I can see that there's still some opacity to this layer here. So what I like to do is come back, bring the flow all the way up, and I want to just, I want to use the white brush here, and I want to go on top of what I just did to make sure that we don't see anything coming through on the bottom layer. Now I want to be careful not to get too close to the edge because I want to make sure that it's blended in, but what I want to do is make sure that the image I want to see is on top and there's no opacity to it. So I want to brush over this little girl and make sure that she is showing up in the picture the way I want her to. Can turn the bottom layer back on. Looks pretty good. We can see we've blended it in fairly well. One other way you can make sure that you brushed in all the areas you needed to is to hold the Option or Alt key and select the layer mask. And what that's going to do is just show you the mask itself. So you can see here it's a little bit lighter. Maybe I can just brush that in a little bit more. and make sure I got all the areas that I wanted to, especially in the middle of the body here. I want to make sure there's no opacity to that. So I'm going to hold Option or Alt once again, click that, and it brings the image back. And there we go. We swapped out the little girl and put one in where she was looking at the camera. Okay, we're going to save this, and it'll go back into Lightroom, into our catalog. So there, now we have our final image where we swapped out the little girl, and now she's looking towards the camera, and we can bring this back to Lightroom and finish editing the photo as far as the colors and making it pop a little bit more. And now we have a nice image where everybody's looking at the camera. Here are 2 more images where I want to replace one of the heads. Here we've got a funny face going on, and in this image here, we've got 2 of the kids with a nice face and one with eyes closed. So I want to open up the eyes on this little girl, and I'm going to use this technique to do that. So I have the top layer here, which is the eyes that I want to use and the face that I want to use. So I'm going to select both layers. I'm going to go to Edit, so Auto Align Layers, Auto, OK. Now we have our layers aligned, so I'm going to just select the top layer, hold the Option or Alt key, select the layer mask. It's going to hide that layer for me. Now I'm just going to go back and paint in where I want to see. I'm going to select the layer mask, press the letter B for our brush, flow down around 10%, and I'm going to come over here and just start painting in with my color set to white. A lot of times it's easy to blend the hair in if there's a slight difference in the hair. Make sure that the neck and the shirt kind of match there, and just blend it in. And then from here, you can crop it. And there we go. We've got a picture where everybody's looking. I'm going to save this, and it'll bring it back into Lightroom, and we're all done with this image. So you can see swapping heads is pretty easy, starting with an image like this, adding the head, masking it, and painting it in. So I hope I helped you learn how to swap heads easily in Photoshop to make a group image where everybody's looking at the camera. Thank you for stopping by my channel and checking out this video. If you like Photoshop, Lightroom, and photography, consider subscribing. I look forward to seeing you guys again in the next video.